Councilman Smiley. Councilwoman Easter Thomas. Councilwoman Green. Councilman Ford. Councilwoman Logan. Present. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington. Present. Councilman Spinoza. Councilman Warren. Present. Councilwoman Walker. Present. Councilman Canali. Here. Chair Carlisle.
Chair's present and observes a quorum. Colleagues, we have 2 items for discussion on today's agenda. We have the police CIP and operating budget, as well as the fire CIP and operating budget. If you see me get up and leave in the middle and I don't return, I apologize. We have some stuff going on outside of City Hall that I may have to go run and attend to. And so I apologize in advance if I leave. It's not personal. With that being said, we'll get right to it. Welcome to our heroes in blue. The floor is yours. Names and titles for the record, and take it away. Thank you.
C.J. Davis, Memphis Police Chief, 170 North Main. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Don Crow, Assistant Chief of Police, 170 North Main.
I've been waiting general services for you.
Sean Jones, Assistant Chief, 170 North Main.
Vincent Easton, Finance Manager, 170 North Main.
Good afternoon, Council, Council Chair. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to share with you the fiscal year 2025 operating budget and CIP budget for the Memphis Police Department. Our budget requests were developed and coordinated with the guidance of this administration and really focuses on public safety initiatives, specifically dealing with the reduction of crime. Our goal, not just for our department, but citywide, is to reduce violent crime in our city. Some of the immediate action and involvement that we've had is the continuation of utilizing place-based, data-driven suppression to identify hot spots in our city so that we can focus specifically on areas of crime. Utilizing a focused deterrence model of identifying violent offenders to continue to support the effort of identifying those violent offenders and repeat offenders through a very strategic process of ensuring that those individuals go down the correct path, whether it's intervention, whether it's prosecution, or some other referral. And to ensure a holistic approach to our work. As mentioned in the past, we want to maintain a robust recruiting and hiring campaign so that we can ensure that we have the numbers of human resources that we need in order to facilitate the work that we need to do. And we will continue to collaborate with our federal partners to ensure that we have the assistance from the feds and the state in order to reduce crime. Our guiding principles and ideology for the department, our mission statement, as stated, is the mission of the Memphis Police Department is to reduce crime by providing quality public safety in partnership with our community. Our vision is to strive to be a best-in-class leader in policing by continually improving our people, processes, technology, and service to our community. And our values, as stated, are professionalism, integrity, collaboration, and accountability. Just a few of the highlights from the previous fiscal year, the ending fiscal year. We created a citywide crime reduction strategic plan, fiscal 23 and 24, where we have today an overall 20% reduction in Part 1 crime citywide. We reestablished the Special Traffic Enforcement STU unit to focus on speeding and reckless driving, the utilization of auxiliary units to support increased patrol demands, in essence, our mounted patrol and also our motors, et cetera. Expanded the violent crimes unit so that we could have a more comprehensive focus on investigations, especially non-fatal aggravated assaults, which can sometimes lead to homicides. We expanded the homicide unit to include 10 additional investigators to our Charlie shift and created the public-facing repeat offender dashboard and the homicide dashboard. We created the Memphis Most Wanted webpage located on the MPD website, the deployment of tasers to all of our uniformed personnel as a less lethal device, expanded the crisis intervention training program to include all recruits when they come through the Memphis Police Academy, and we expanded the MPD Connect to Memphis camera network. Our organization chart is illustrated in your packets. Our department is broken down into 8 divisions: strategic strategies and special projects, information systems, administrative services, our 911 center, our training academy, investigative services, patrol operations, and special operations, which hold the largest of the complement of our uniformed personnel. Next slide. Some of our strategic initiatives to create a safer Memphis include, in this upcoming fiscal year, our strategic measures: reduce violent crime by 10%, reduce property crime by 10%, reduce traffic fatalities by 20%, conduct 2 Code Zero collaborative operations monthly, reduce priority 1 call response times to 13 minutes, increase murder homicide clearance rate to 60%, increase crimes against persons clearance rate to 60%, hire 200 police recruits in the fiscal 24-25 year, reduce citizen complaints by 10%, and reduce administrative internal complaints by 20%. A snapshot of our CIP budget. As you can see, our CIP budget covers 5 years. For the fiscal year 25 budget, the Police Academy renovations at $1,215,000. This particular renovation deals with our academy range, where an assessment was done on the range where there was significant safety issues, lead issues, and we're in the process of renovating that range. The new Mount Moriah Station, the work and actual construction is underway. That cost for fiscal year 2025 is $1 million. And then the take-home car program, there are no allocated funding in the CIP budget. We are still receiving vehicles in the take-home car program, and then the funding will pick up in requests in fiscal 26, 27, 28. Also, our Axon Enterprise Solution is a continuation of a CIP ask from last year. This year's commitment is $10 million. The Axon program covers our body-worn camera technology advancements, our in-car cameras, and also enhancements to the FUSIS camera network throughout the city. Helicopter maintenance, this is a one-time cost of $1.4 million. And then our violent crime building, which is a renovation of the existing building, which is ongoing now, and that cost is $200,000 for a total of $13,815,000 for fiscal year 2025. Next slide. So our operating budget requests some of the strategic priorities addressed by this budget under public safety: perform Operation Code Zero details twice a month, focus on violent repeat offenders to support crime reduction, enhance traffic enforcement on various shifts citywide to reduce reckless driving and traffic-related fatalities, and continue to focus on increasing hiring and retention of commissioned officers. In the technology area, our strategic priorities are enhance the current public-facing data reporting system on our website to inform the community regarding crime and policing activities, increase the number of cameras in the Connect to Memphis solution through a public and private partnership, upgrade the infrastructure of the real-time crime center to support the growth of our camera network system. Under leadership, expand the Memphis Police Leadership Academy in partnership with the University of Tennessee, establish a formal International Association of Chiefs of Police mentoring program for executive ranks, ensure mid-management personnel receive leadership training through various training opportunities and establish our peer exchange shadowing opportunities within city government and external partners. Under community outreach, ensure commission officers complete 4 mandatory community service hours annually, enhance the community outreach program activities with youth-specific focus through public and private partnerships, strengthen partnerships with the community through outreach efforts to improve communication and collective crime-fighting strategies, ensure MPD is represented at various non-police related community events, in essence, churches, town hall meetings, and other community walks, and enhance police-community relations. Moving into our expenditures table. The fiscal year 24 expenditures bridge to fiscal year 25 requests. The adopted budget on the personnel line was $271,195,799. The funding budget was $271,195,799. The fiscal year 25 request is $273,359,030, with a variance of an increase of $2,163,231, which is a 0.8% increase. Personnel expense, $272,488,772. The funding budget, $272,488,772. The fiscal year request, $274,494,338, with a variance of $2,005,566, which is a 0.7% increase. And personnel recovery, this is mostly grants and other recovery funding streams that come into the Memphis Police Department. The adopted budget, the number was $1,292,973. The same for the funding budget amount. And the fiscal year 25 request is $1,135,308, with a variance of $157,665, a decrease of 12.2%. Under materials and supplies, M&S expenses $35,592,084. The encumbrances are $1,567,880. The funding budget is $37,159,964. The request this year is $35,489,349, with a variance of $102,735, which is a decrease of 0.3%. M&S recovery, less $1,615,427. The funding budget, the same amount. The fiscal year 25 request line is $1,615,427, which is flat 0% increase or decrease on that line. Capital outlay, $490,900 was the adopted budget. Encumbrances were $7,783. Funding budget was $498,683. The fiscal year 25 request is $375,400, with a variance of $115,500, which is a negative 23.5%. Grants and subsidies in the fiscal year 24, the adopted budget, $490,900. Grants and subsidies, $150,000. And the funding budget was $150,000. And the request is the same, with a 0.0% difference. Totals being the adopted budget, $305,813,356. Encumbrances, $1,575,663. The funding budget for 2024 is $307,389,019. The request for this year is $307,758,353, with a variance of $1,944,996, which is a 0.6% increase. Moving on to our program comparative spending. This particular table outlines the different legal levels throughout the department where personnel changes or funding existed. I will say that this slide illustrates decreases in certain areas. However, the decreases that you see in numbers and in dollars really specifically deal with the positions that the funded positions that we eliminated from the department to get to a 10% reduction in our request dollars. So the executive administration line, the adopted budget was $42,093,361. Encumbrances were $1,540,645. The funding budget is $43,634,006. And the fiscal year 25 request is $43,378,523, with a difference of $1,285,162, which is a 3.1% increase. The support services area, $42,547,518 was the adopted budget. Encumbrances were $1,163,803. The funding budget was $43,711,321. The request for fiscal year 25 is $43,833,765, and then the variance is $1,286,247, which is a 3.0% increase. For the precincts, all 9 precincts, the adopted budget was $153,547,289, with a variance of $1,392,627. Encumbrances. The funding budget was $152,154,662. The fiscal year 25 request is $164,417,308, with a variance of $10,870,019, which is an increase of 7.1%. Investigative services, $38,191,239 was in the adopted budget. Encumbrances, $5,319. The funding budget is $38,196,558. The fiscal year 25 request is $34,184,738, which is less $4,006,501, which is a reduction of 10.5%. That 10.5% is taken from vacant investigator positions that had not been filled. This was not a reduction in any of our staff or any of the available positions for promotions that might occur in this next coming year. We still have investigator vacant positions. The next line is our special operations, $29,433,949. Encumbrances, $258,523. The funding budget is $29,692,472. The fiscal year 25 request is $21,944,019, and this is less $7,489,930. This line also was impacted by the cut of funded positions in our current budget, but does not impact our operation or reduce the operational demand for positions in those areas. Total expenditures in the adopted budget, $305,813,356. Encumbrances, $1,575,663. The funding budget, $307,389,019. And the fiscal year 25 request is $307,758,353, with a difference of $1,944,996, which is a 0.6% increase. Next slide. This is further explanation of the fiscal year 25 year-over-year changes in expenditures. In the personnel services line under salaries, these were the positions, the funded positions that were eliminated from this year's budget. Personnel changes due to recalculation of full-time salaries, MPA incentives, and budgeting for necessary positional needs. Potential raises, $7,121,566. Proposed cost of living adjustment. Overtime, we're requesting an additional $7,793,294 based on actual trends and cost of living increases. Benefits, less $2,051,618. Personnel changes due to recalculation of employee benefits, pension, group life, Medicare, long-term disability, health insurance, and other minor benefits. Attrition, $8,844,857. Correction to the prior year estimate. The pension ADC, $6,441,737 to fund our current year pension obligations. And then the sign-on bonuses that we afford in our recruitment campaign, $2,200,000. Subtotal is $2,163,230. Under materials and supplies, the city shop's charges are less $74,037, and that is provided by general services and not in the police budget. The same with city shop fuel, $1,792,489 provided by general services. Data word processing, $300,000 to support contractual increases. Clothing is $78,500 for uniform costs for our recruits, specifically for our recruit program. Advertising and publications, $500,000. Advertising plan for the recruitment program. Seminars, training, education, $127,946 for leadership training. Miscellaneous professional, $1,112,400, and that's background recruitment expense and janitorial costs. This is a continuation also of really normalizing our background and recruiting program because it was funded by ARPA funds in the past. Lawsuits provided by legal services, less $700,000. Miscellaneous services and charges, $279,874. This is recruitment expense for relocation assistance program, recruitment events and testing. And then miscellaneous M&S, $65,072. That's for outside phone supplies, et cetera. And capital outlay, less $115,500. Reduction in the camera program equipment. Subtotal is less $218,234, and the net change is $1,944,996. The next slide is basically an illustration just to show the various allocations of overtime. Memphis Police Department is now using our UKG system, which allows us to track overtime in different work environments. This is only a snapshot. This isn't a current number, but we are moving to a place where not only can we track overtime by the different special events, we can also track overtime by individuals and the various precincts. Next slide. Under the revenue category, the fiscal year 24 adopted revenues bridge to fiscal year 25 requests. Our total adopted budget revenue, a lot of these revenues that I will be speaking of are not revenues that come to the police department, but they do come to the general fund for the city. 98,000 in fines and forfeitures. And then the budget funding amount was 98,500. The same for fiscal year 25 as a projection. 25,000 in seizures. The same for fiscal year 25 requests. The beer board fines, $1,500. $1,500 the same in the fiscal year 25 budget. DUI fees, breath analysis as well, 2,000 and 2,000 for the fiscal year 25 requests. Sex offender registry, these are payments that sex offenders have to make to the sex offender registry. Administrative charges, 70,000 in adopted budget, and the fiscal year 25 is the same, 70,000. We no longer have the impound lot, but record and storage charges in the adopted budget was $1,440,525. The funding budget, the number is the same, and in fiscal 25 requests, the amount remains the same, $1,440,000. The lot is currently being run and under new contract by VMS Services. Police special events, 500,000. Funding budget is 500,000, and fiscal year 25 request is the same, 500,000. Toll fees, 750,000. Funding budget, 750,000, the same for the fiscal year 25. State grants, 228,000. The funding budget, 228,000. That number remains the same, fiscal 25. Under federal grants, the exact same figure. Under sales reports, other revenues, 106,000. The number's the same in the fiscal year 25. Sale of reports is at 81,000. The number remains in the fiscal 25 budget. Miscellaneous revenue, 25,000. That number remains the same in the fiscal 25 budget. And transfers, 8,550,000. Transfers in. The funding budget, 8,550,000. The fiscal year 25 request is 8,028,681, less 521,319, which is a negative 6.1%. That's from the tax referendum. And that tax referendum line is 7,250,000. The funding budget is 7,250,000. The fiscal year 25 request is 6,750,000, which is less 500,000, which is a 6.9% reduction. Metro alarms, 1,300,000. The funding budget. Metro alarms. Well, the fiscal year 25 is 1,278,681, less 21,319 for a negative 1.6%. Totals 11,673,025 in the adopted budget. The funding budget 11,673,025. In the fiscal year 25 request 11,151,706. Which is a difference of 521,319, equating to a negative 4.5% decrease in revenues. And then year over year, change. You can skip that one? Okay.
Let's dive in. Sorry, just for the sake of time, I appreciate the thoroughness.
That's okay.
But let's dive into anything about the complement that you think is very important. I know that there's a lot of not necessarily moving pieces, but on paper there are. Let's do that, and then let's hop into materials and supplies. And on materials and supplies, if you'll just touch on, we know what's driving your three largest changes, which are fuel, computer services, and shop, but plan to touch on miscellaneous professional services because the movement, or it's such a large chunk.
Okay.
And then I think we'll be good to hop in after that.
Okay, do you want me to start at slide number 21 here?
Whichever one you think is a better visual of understanding,
Okay.
Basically kind of what, I think, let's just stay here and just
It's a
talk
little-
about just give more of a narrative about what's happening.
Okay, it's a little complex with the numbers, but I'll hop over to the status of vacant positions. I think that might be a good spot to start so that we can understand what we tried to accomplish with the administration and finance working with us. In the status of vacant positions, the on hold column is basically the number of positions that were funded in our budget that we have put on hold or not funded for this fiscal year. That was part of that 28 million that you saw on the breakdown from removing those salaries out of our budget.
And I'll hop in here. So I'll say this for council members. So to really harp on this, because I think it's very important, so we're not confused down the road, is we used to show the full complement, meaning the council had agreed that we wanted 2,500 officers, so it used to reflect an authorized complement of 2,500 officers in the budget book, knowing obviously that we have no mathematical way of getting from 1,900 or even 2,100 to 2,500 officers in a calendar year. We used to shift that into overtime. Then we said, the administration was like, well, that's confusing to people, so we're going to show the complement that we want. So we'll show it at 2,500 or 2,400, but we're going to footnote that we're only funding 2,100 or whatever it was for that year. This year, we're going to it sounds like we're going to modify that one more time and just show with no footnote the exact number of officers that we are authorizing to hire in this year, save the hold, right? Did I say that? Did I get that right? Okay, save the hold. Okay.
Yes.
All right, I just think that's crystal clear, not only for this room, but for when you were out in communities and people are asking you, I thought I heard something on the news that you're cutting this or you're doing that so since we're on this subject, I want to make sure that everybody is good. If there are any council members that want to ask a question specific to the budgets, the complement that we are funding this year, I'll open the floor up for that just because I don't want to lose. I just think it's that important that everybody feels very comfortable. Yes, ma'am.
So my question was going to be about the promotion plan that you came and introduced a couple of years, last year, a couple of years ago,
Yes.
the supervisor, whatever. So is that baked into that hold or this whole process?
Those positions were approved in the previous year's budget. They're not a discussion in this budget because they were already approved and funded. So
have they all been filled?
yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes. Along with other promotional, we still have the ability and the flexibility to continue promotions as we would normally. So what we have done here is, and I also added another chart, which is the next one. I'm going to hop to the next one.
Yeah, I just want to say, hold on, let's just stay right here. I want to keep
Let's
this
stay right here.
just very narrow in
This
scope.
next
Yeah, I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
that was
That's-
related or if
It is
okay.
in a way. I mean, it absolutely is a fair question because you're still talking about the overall complement and kind of where people are going, which I think is important.
And they
So
were those were new positions, so.
Yes, but
Okay,
I also
all
want to be
right.
very careful that we don't dive into that subject too much. Councilwoman Green.
Yep,
you
back
go to the
on
next slide?
slide 13, when you're talking about the percentage of increase and decrease, you stated in your goals that you're going to be increasing your overall solve rate, that you're going to be increasing the number of code zero operations, of special operations. I am just confused as to how we think those goals are possible when we're talking about the complement and you're showing a decrease of 10.5% in investigative services and 25.4% in special operations. So if you can help me clear that up.
So those reductions are not warm bodies. Those reductions are eliminating vacant positions. We still will be able to continue to promote up to a certain amount. In the past, those positions have just been funded and not filled. So we're removing them from the overall budget.
So I guess my question then is, what do we have still open in investigative services and special operations that are not filled right now? They're gonna help you meet those goals.
So say, for instance, right now we have 50 detective positions that are vacant right now. We have a promotional process that's coming up. Every time we promote, excuse me, we also vacate positions as well. So even if I promote 15 lieutenants, 10 of them could potentially come out of the investigative complement as well. So we will continue to promote, we will continue to expand where we can, because even expanding our units requires us to go through a process with our MPA when it comes to expanding. But it doesn't stop us from increasing our productivity. We still have the same numbers, and we still have the ability to expand to some degree in vacant positions.
So I guess that's my confusion, because you keep saying we have the same numbers, but we can expand. So to me, it's one or the other, and I want you to meet all of those goals. That means, you know, I'm on Team Memphis. I think we all would love for you to check off every one of those goals. We'd all look like superheroes. I want to make sure that we are giving you the tools to do that, and I'm still not clear to Chairman Carlisle's point, how if we are reducing, even if they are vacant positions, they are positions in investigative services and special operations that I think are incredibly important to meeting those specific goals that you've outlined.
Yes.
How are we going to be able to do that if we're holding the same / expanding? I'm not clear.
Really, we're talking about numbers and dollars associated with vacant positions and not positions that are currently filled or our capacity to even increase. These are dollars that have been just sitting there in our budget, if that makes sense. We have the capacity to hire 2,500 officers. We're funded about 2,300 in the previous budget, 2,300, 2,400 positions. So when we eliminate 300, it doesn't stop us from doing the work that we've been doing, if that makes sense, council member.
Yeah, I guess my question is, we don't want to keep doing what we've been doing. We want to do more, right? And so that seems to me that would require more bodies. And so that's where my confusion is. Our goals are higher, so it seems like we're going to need more. But you're talking about either staying the same or moving around numbers.
So we're really setting goals that haven't been set, before, especially as it relates to setting metrics. The metric for homicide clearance rates. To get there, we have to manage our people, provide additional support for those individuals in homicide, which we did, and we believe because of that, we should be able to get there as well. Some of the other initiatives that we plan to do, we plan to utilize some of the same people, reallocate some of our manpower as well. I understand, looking at the table, it looks like we're taking resources away and trying to do more. We certainly have set our goals based on the numbers of people that we have access to.
Just as a general question, can you tell me how many recruits we can
Yeah, I think that's where I was going to go. I think that may help, because a lot of it's paper. They're paper soldiers, and I think that's a great the lateral hire has not been a great success because it's such a tight labor market. So the academy classes are a great way to just talk about pure math, which honestly the next slide is money for. And if you want to look, and before you go, this is something that has been around, and I wish we talked about more. If you want to understand how we ended up in this position of complement outside of just the shifting sands of the world, it's straight math, and it's right there between calendar year 11 through 16. If we lose net 100 officers a year for 4 or 5 years, you can see how we went from an all-time high in 08 down to where we are today, and we basically bump along. And the reality is, and this is the hardest thing I think for me after being here for 5 years and going through COVID and going through George Floyd and going through Tyree Nickel and going through a lot of these swings for officers, including even Liza Fletcher and Ezekiel Kelly. Like, those are horrific, horrifying things that officers have to deal with. My point is that but for the aggressive recruiting and raises, I'm not sure where the department would be. You look at Pittsburgh, right? And Pittsburgh is the most salient example recently where you had a council not stand behind the police department the way they should have, and they have eliminated active calls from 3 a.m. to 7 o'clock in the morning on a daily basis. So if you call in and you are not actively in harm's way, meaning if you get beaten and robbed, but the assailant has left you, you basically have to call and leave a voicemail for the Pittsburgh Police Department until they respond at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I think this is a really good chart to demonstrate the numbers when people push back on how we arrived from a complement standpoint, but also when they say, well, you're paying them more and you're doing all these things and you're not getting officers. It is a sheer numbers game, and I would make the argument, but for these incentives, we would be worse off than we are today. And I want, at least for me, I want that to be out there and understood, because I think there's a lot of misinformation about it. And so anyway, I'm sorry to hijack that, but it's something that Councilman Morgan and I used to talk about a lot, because that's right when we were going through benefits cuts. But the thing that happened is they stopped funding recruiting classes. Yeah. So we stopped actively recruiting. We stopped putting people through the academy in significant numbers. And that's the end result.
Right. And so to your point, it is well known that anytime you stop hiring public safety, it takes forever to dig out the hole.
It's like before the transfer portal, it's like having 3 bad recruiting classes in a football program and then wondering what happened.
So, and to get back to your point, Councilmember Green, so if you look at this chart, and I had this chart inserted for this reason, so that we know that we can hire up to about 200. On a good year, we can get to 280 if all of the funding is there and the marketing is there. And that's what ARPA did for us. It helped us to get out there outside of here in the city and also outside. But what we wanted to do was make sure that what's in this complement that we're talking about does not eliminate our ability to expand. And so we still have the ability to expand within about 200 positions, and we can safely hold or eliminate those other ones that were typically funded. And it's the same in that detective spot too, that we do have the ability to expand some, but to just have positions dormant because we know we can't reasonably get to 400 in a year, we'll readjust during the fiscal budget next year to determine what the ask will be next year, depending on how well we do this year. Councilmember Carlo, did I help?
Yes, ma'am. I just think again, it's important. It's and mainly for the public too, that are so anxious for more police officers. It's a grind. I mean, it's just literally, and I'm preaching to the choir. Whichever of this group has to run the academy and the recruiting group, it's just a grind. And in the midst of all of this, we had an article in the Washington Post, and one of our former officers who was a recruiter, told it like it is. When he started 25 years ago and would walk into a high school, and the way that officer was received versus the way that officer is received today, I mean, it's pretty tough. This, however you may feel about residency requirements, it's pretty straightforward math at the end of the day. We have 650,000 residents. Of that, we only have so many that fit the age requirements. Take that down to about 10%. Say you're down to 60 to 70,000 people in your pool of possible candidates. Then you start eliminating people for, psychological, physical, all the things that you have to vet for. You start to realize that your pool of applicable candidates that are available in Memphis and or Shelby County is so minute that you can't mathematically pull your way out, but for these massive recruiting campaigns, because we don't have the physical population of available adults that are even eligible. Right. I mean, but again, it's just a misunderstood thing because people don't see it because they're like,
what we're asking.
we spent
Yeah.
$5 million last year, quote, and I'm just making it up. But say we spent 2.2 million on recruiting officers. They're like, well, where are the 400 officers that you said you were going to hire? It's like each class takes 6 weeks. I mean, you just, again, 6 months. Yeah, you just start to do the math.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just one of those things where, again, as council members, I keep beating up on this point because it is one of the things that continually seems to be the circular reference question of what do we need to do, how do we need to do it, and why hasn't it happened yesterday?
And the attrition is always, the goal is always to double the average attrition so that we can end with a net gain. That because we're gonna always lose, even on a good day, even when things are running well in our department, people retire, people separate, spouses get jobs in other places. We will have natural attrition. I will say that our attrition rate has gone down considerably compared to in previous years, but it's still a grind to hire and make sure that we try to make double the attrition. So with that said, going to the materials and supply.
Yeah, let's just touch on professional services. I don't want to touch on lawsuits. And then I think everything else is relatively self-explanatory. And we've had, even though it's not his division anymore, poor Antonio's general services has just been getting beaten on.
Okay. I was trying to see where the professional services line.
It's just, it's 10% of your budget. If you could just touch on some of the major driving contracts that you have, whether those are consultants or I know we use some for pre-servicing.
The breakdown, yeah. Let's go to 26.
Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Slide 26.
Okay. So on slide 26, NEMARC is our temporary employees and background recruitment expensive. These are individuals that actually have come back to the police department and they actually do background investigations. Most of them are retired MPD folks that work through NEMARC. GVIP, of course.
Well, Lynn, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I know that Councilwoman Green is going to ask, and so can you just dive into why it's different for the Memphis Police Department and talk about it's not your standard employment, right? If you wouldn't mind just touching on that briefly, I think that's important. Just because again, it's a massive part. Well, not massive, but it's a significant expenditure in this line item, and it's something that's come up in other divisions. Yeah. So I think if one of you guys would touch on that, I think that would be helpful. And you don't have to go all the way into the weeds, but I think just touch on high level what they do that's different from your average employer.
So, and I guess historically, NEMARC has been the part-time temporary employee sort of system or mechanism that the police department utilizes, not just for background and recruitment, but we also have individuals that work in personnel and payroll that get paid through this temp. Yes. The main reason that we continue to have individuals, we would love for them to be permanent employees in the city, especially important jobs like that, is that right now those positions don't pay as much as the temporary contract does. And when we've offered permanent positions with benefits, a lot of those individuals decline because they actually make more money through the NEMARC.
Okay, so I'll just say it again for the record, for the administration that's here. I know we're getting marked up by the staffing, and if they're paying those people more, that means we could pay those people more and have the benefits and have it all in-house. So I would ask again, as we have across all of the divisions, that we really look at these contracts, because staffing companies are businesses. They are there also to make money. And so if they are making money on this deal, that means we could be putting it to salary and benefits and taking it in-house and probably saving ourselves some money. So I've said that pitch, I think, with every division that's been in front of us now. And I don't know, is all 10 million of this that staffing?
no.
2.3.
2.3,
Okay,
yeah.
so 2.3 million.
All of
And
that.
previously, between the other two
Mhm.
divisions, we had 1.3 million. So now we're up to, 3.6, 4 million. We're getting to the point where it's like, it's a lot of money every year,
Yes.
over and over.
Yes.
So,
We would
look, all
love-
the administration's gotten really excited.
Yeah.
I'm just, again, pointing out, it's a huge expense across the board for us to be paying.
So,
Yeah,
just-
go ahead, Chief. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I think, yeah, you're good. I think what I'd say is I think Chief Fouché is getting the word. And when she and her team come down, and Chief Adams, I think that'll be a good topic of conversation. Chief Davis, if you want to move on to let's skip the leases. They are what they are. Not my favorite thing, but
So-
yeah.
the other 10%, or do you want you don't want the leases?
We're gonna have
Okay,
we're
I
gonna
got
have
you.
a more in-depth dive, and Councilman Warren and others may have some questions about GVIP
Okay.
specific to the
Okay.
department. But after having OYS here and some other group and GVIP itself, I think it sounds like the council is gonna have a deeper dive as we get closer to wrap up. And I don't want to make it. I don't want to minimalize GVIP, but in the grand scheme of this budget, $350,000 is not a lot. So it's I think we're going to have a deeper dive on that, I think, as we go down the road. So if we can touch on the last slide, and then I'm going to go to Councilman
Okay.
Warren, who's been very, very patiently waiting.
So on our last slide, I'll just go really quickly through our various leases. The MGU, that location is $411,600 annually. Shelby County, our 911 center at 201 Popular, $408,340. Reconciliations for that's over at Union Extended. For CJC is $258,029. Internal Affairs or IEB, 235,000. The RTCC over in the Methodist facility at 600 Jefferson, 206,720. External Relations is over at Union Extended as well, at 108,312. And then our Neighborhood Watch and some other work units are also in that same building at 45,000. And the total amount is $1,673,001 in leases. And our MWBE spend sort of speaks for itself. This is just a breakdown of all of the various minority women business enterprise contracts that we have engaged in this past fiscal year.
Perfect. All right, Councilman Warren, thank you for your patience, sir.
My pleasure. And my first question was asked by Councilwoman Green to figure out how we could decrease and still have improvements. I just have a question on comparative spending in slide 13. Can you explain what a negative encumbrance roll forward on precincts means, where that comes from? Because I always thought encumbrances that you roll forward were positive. So how do you take that back? What goes on there?
Yeah, Mr. Eason, will you interpret the encumbrance on page 13 for the precinct?
It was actually a correction from within the coding. They had to correct it at year end, so to move it to the correct legal level. So it was a correction.
So we'd already done it, we took it back? Or I still don't understand. How do you correct it? If you have a roll forward and now it's negative, you gave it too much last year and now we're taking it back? Is that what it
We're
was?
making a correction, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And this is what I wish we could get more done is footnoting that kind of stuff so we can just have it would be awesome. But that's not a police thing. That's a administration president. Yes, Walter, chief person.
Hi, Walter Person, interim CFO, 125 North Main. So pardon me? Oh, nice to meet you too, sir. The encumbrance roll forward, you're correct, Doctor. It should be a positive number. It's a contractual hold to go from period to period. In this case, what I'm understanding Mr. Eason to say is that that contractual hole was in the wrong location, so it's been moved to another location, which left a negative encumbrance that should be modified and corrected, which is one of the things that we usually do in our year-end wrap-up.
Okay,
It's reflected
it
here.
sounds to me like complicated accounting, but thank you.
All right, hold on really quickly. I just had a quick couple of questions, and I'll go to Councilwoman Logan. I wanted to come back up to a kind of a higher level, and I just want to grab my notes really quickly. I'll be interested to see more as we get through the overtime rollout, and you guys have a chance to really get your hand. Now that you've got a great way to track it, how you guys manage that going forward. So I won't spend a lot of time there. I appreciate the repeat offender dashboard and the homicide dashboard. Do you think it's important that we kind of follow through and continue to try and collect and get forward-facing on clearance rates, et cetera? I know that's something that we talked about tracking last summer, but I do know that it takes time to collect that, get it set up, get it working, all the things that go into setting up a dashboard. CIP. We have the take-home car program, which we still have $1.5 million that hasn't been encumbered this year. So that means we haven't even placed the order, which isn't necessarily, and this kind of goes back to who's on first, right? Like, is it police? Is it fleet? Police, fleet, police. I don't know. Got to find that out. Who is really going to start to take the lead on those things and work kind of just like you guys do with finance. We really need one person making orders and managing the routine maintenance and then the ongoing rolling capital. On things on vehicles outside of the take-home car program. Well, obviously, it's been some slick roads out there. Really good drivers in Memphis in general, and some slick roads for some of our patrolmen. It's been a tough year for fender benders. But in all sincerity, I guess my question is, and we don't have to dive into it too deeply. I think it's probably more of an ongoing conversation for me because it is so overarching through all the divisions. But really putting a focus on not even a focus, making it a priority for patrol vehicles and making sure that we are not missing not just this year and next year and getting vehicles back out on the road, but making sure that we're getting back into this, routine ordering, that we have a plan that is properly funded so that, and look, you guys all paid your dues. But you also remember what it was like probably to be a young whippersnapper patrol officer. You're getting out of the academy, and there's that brand new vehicle that you see your colonel get in. And then there's your vehicle. As much as I love seeing some of the Fords rolling out on the street the other day, the Ford Tauruses, my big thing is to kind of Councilwoman Green's, like, I see that as an opportunity, and I'm sure you do too, because you hear it from some sergeants and down that, it's a recruiting opportunity also to put in, as much as it is a tactical advantage to have people in new cars that are ready to go patrol and do the fight. So I don't want to get too much into it because I know that's more of a, like, let's get the spreadsheets out, but I would really like to have a conversation with command staff and with general services and with Chief Adams to make sure that we are starting to set ourselves up for that success, so that we're not constantly having to go and figure out like what's starting in the back. And I'd also add to it, and I'm not necessarily insinuating that they are not, but if we have to fund an extra few hours for more tactical driving classes, I'm happy to do that too. I mean,
We're doing it.
Yeah, right.
We had to.
And I'm not saying that it's our, look, Memphis is not known to have the best drivers. And a lot of our recruits are coming out of the Memphis School of Driving, okay? So if we have to beef that up, I'm fine with it. And then last thing, because I've taken up way too much time, is technology and data. We've done so many things, and we've recognized the fact that we are not going to get to like a mass manpower where you can have every officer on a corner. And I know that we want to use data in order to make informed decisions, and we've talked about it before, but I am to the point now where it's like I will fund almost anything if it will help us complement physical bodies on the street, especially as it comes to clearance rate and closures, right? Like, we can put all the Connect cameras in the world out there, but if somebody's in a stolen vehicle with a paper tag with a mask on going to a neighborhood that no one's going to talk, that's tough. right? And y'all deal with that every single day. So whatever we can do, whether it's the funding side of things or if it's going and partnering to go to the state and say, we want Ford all cars that are manufactured out of Ford and Volkswagen in the state of Tennessee to have a QR code that's implanted in the physical trunk of the car, right? That's what we're going to scan now, right? And the clerk's office can update the QR code. So whatever that is, we will do our best to support you if we can. So I'll leave it at that. Most of my other questions will probably be towards wrap up for y'all. With that, I've got Councilwoman Logan. Councilwoman Green, did you want back in the queue? No? All right, so Councilwoman Logan and then Councilwoman Swearingen Washington.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Chief. I would like talk about, well, to get more information about the overtime. I know we mentioned it, and we're just getting this, and in digesting everything, I noticed that, and I'm glad you all have this overtime management as well, but we did have that conversation about promotions and having enough supervisors for people to go out or whatever. And so I noticed on here the overtime under admin. I wasn't sure if that included those, upper level positions, and are they having to do more? Is that overtime inclusive of them having to serve more because you don't have enough for all of the units, or is that something else? So, I kind of wanted to just you don't have to tell me now, but I know I would like to get more information about that process, and how this budget addresses that in conjunction with the conversation Chairman Carlisle brought up about, us serving the special events and doing the other details, how all of that plays into this budget and how we've baked that in. The second one is, you have mentioned, and this is just innovation, where you're going, if any of that is in this budget in terms of the use of the leases, the use of buildings we have a lot of vacant buildings that may be repurposed or something, bring everybody into one instead of having a whole bunch of, you have a lot of vacant buildings in communities. And so I know empty schools and different things like that. Have we thought about repurposing those? I do know you're repurposing one in my district, the old precinct. I'm glad about that, but instead of having a whole bunch of different leases, if we could put all of it in one and use it to fix up the community and have that COPS program in other areas too. If you could bring something or send something out about that. The professional services, when the study came out, remember the husband and wife did the study or whatever, and so they were talking about one of the recommendations was to repurpose the positions to the civilian positions. So I was wondering if under professional services, instead of those temps, are we able to fill those with civilian positions? I know you said that you mentioned something about the pay wasn't as high.
So that, council member, we will be working with the administration and HR. It is really not ideal for us to have temporary employees in charge of payroll responsibilities anyway. That was a bit of a surprise that we have part-time people working from a temp agency working on a payroll.
Right.
And the reason that they gave when we offered them a full-time position is the pay. So a pay and class study request, not just for that position, but there's several positions that we cannot fill. Helicopter mechanic, because the pay is well below industry standards and it's hard for us to fill. So we are working with HR, our pay and class, our compensation person left. I don't think I think they're trying to fill that position, but we used to work with Mr. Byrd to just take a look at some of our positions so that we don't have vacant positions and we're not using temporary services in order to get those positions filled. And those are critical positions.
So are they
payroll.
civilian, are we
They're
looking at
civilian.
civilian positions?
They're
Not
civilian.
temp, but just straight hiring civilians in some of these roles?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
all
what we want to do.
right, okay.
Yes.
All right. The last thing, I had to go to the hospital and I stayed overnight. And I noticed that there was a police car in the parking lot. Just seemed like it seemed like it had been sitting there a long time. It had like sap on it, you know, on the windows and that type of thing. So I wanted to know if we have cars just sitting at different places as
What
a
hospital
deterrent.
were you at?
Baptist. So I
We
didn't
will
know if,
investigate.
pardon me?
We will investigate.
Oh, okay, but that's not a program we have with different companies where we place cars to just stay for a while or something. Okay, all right. Now, the last thing is marketing technology. You know, you can, on any given day, you can look on Instagram and you can see Blackwood News and all these different places. They're everywhere and they're filming everything that's happening bad. And so, and they're sending it all, it's going viral and all this different stuff. Are we utilizing anything to, any type of marketing technology or innovation to combat that, or to tell what you all are doing good, or the, you know, what's being done to capture crime or to curb crime or anything, or to show, when they show those videos, and no shade on Blackwood News. I just mentioned it because that's the one everybody watches, one of them. And so, are we doing anything to say, you know, what our completion rate, or I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
it seems like that would be a good way to go with the marketing innovation too, because we're gonna have to do something, because I'm seeing too many of those,
Yes.
and they're taking advantage of technology and social media and opportunities that we don't seem to be.
we're working with some outside resources in order to help promote what we want to put out. A lot of times we ask for PSAs or time with the media. Sometimes the media is not interested in good stories. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Right.
And but we are working with some outside entities, and you will start to see some very, very intentional kinds of marketing, not just with that, but also with our website. We've had officers, smart officers, who knew how to do webmaster kind of, you know, work, but to a certain degree. So we're looking to hire a professional webmaster,
Yeah.
someone who can help finish building out these databases that our officers have done a great job starting, but they're at a point now where their expertise is somewhat limited and they don't have the time. So we're hiring a webmaster to help with daily updating information, making sure that our platforms are up to date, and also marketing, identifying ways to get information out into the community.
And that's civilian.
Yes,
Okay,
that is
okay,
a
good.
civilian.
All right,
Yes.
great. All right, thank you. And any other information that you have on that? Is that position in this budget?
Not yet, no. That's a position that we plan to repurpose, say, for instance, one of our communication supervisors positions that's been vacant for a long time. We have enough communication supervisors. We can repurpose that position and hire a webmaster. So we're working with Mr.
Okay.
Eason and HR to create a job description for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. I have seen those videos. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sadly. Councilwoman Walker, and then Vice Chairman Canali.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So since it came up about the website and the marketing, can our IT department help you with that?
And they are. As a matter of fact, the new IT manager here is also helping, but the police department, we have so much data and so much information that we want to put out. We want somebody specifically dedicated to the Memphis Police Department. They might help us identify that person and have them dedicated. We don't want to start it and then it stops. We want to have consistent messaging, yes.
Okay, thank you. So what I really wanted to ask about, on page 17, and you were saying that we don't have an impound lot anymore. So we are we have contracted that out to VMS Service, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did this contract begin and how long is it?
We officially handed over the lot in December 2023, is that correct? Yeah.
No, man, this is Antonio Adams, Chief Operating Officer for the City of Memphis, 125 North Main. Excuse me. We do have the vehicle impound lot. It is under the management and operation of Vehicle Management Solutions. It is an at-risk, meaning they're at risk, performance-based contract in which the city will get an opportunity to gain a revenue share of the proceeds there. They took a complete operation and management of the lot January 1st. They came on board in October, did an inventory, identified the vehicles that we could immediately eliminate, and then, of course, started the management of that operation. So again, it's at no cost to us, with the exception of a few issues where we decide that we're going to waive fees, things of that nature. We'll pay on behalf of the victim. But quite honestly, most of it in the total operation is with Vehicle Management Solutions.
Okay, so when you say no cost to us, the overhead for utilities?
They have absorbed the overhead. They
Okay.
will absorb the overhead and continue to do so as long as they're under contract.
Okay, and that revenue share, what would that percentage possibly look like?
I'll bring back in to you all the slide deck in which we provided, and so that you'll see the proposed monthly, and then of course, once they reach a certain threshold with regard to total auctions, what that would be as well.
Okay, and finally, you've touched on a couple of things that are definitely benefits, or at least they're coming across as benefits. Also, is there anything else that you would consider as a benefit with us going with them? And secondly, what was the selection process?
So under the previous administration, it was under exigent circumstances because of overcrowding. And then, of course, we had tow truck operators that actually presented themselves here to the body stating that they would not continue to operate out at that lot. And so what we decided to do was identify someone under exigent circumstances. So it's a short-term agreement, which allows us to now allow them to perform. It was 6 months with a 6-month extension. And so we get an opportunity to, one, see how they perform. If they continue to perform well, we'll have an opportunity to decide whether we can exercise a negotiated agreement or if we want to bid the services out. Many of our employees did decide to retain employment. Those employees got raises as well as bonuses to sign on to retain. Other employees who chose not to had an opportunity to actually bid back into city employment, and they have done so. We had maybe one employee that was of the tenure that that employee decided to retire.
Okay, thank you for that. And one final question, going back to the revenue share, who's collecting the fees?
So the fees are collected on site, and then of course they are turned in no different than any and all fees that we have to the city treasurer, Mr. Lakeith Miller. That is reconciled on a monthly basis. And then of course, with respect to the auctions are under the supervision of the purchasing agent, in which they do dispense teams out there to actually reconcile on site.
Okay, thank you. I
Yes,
yield the
ma'am.
floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief Davis, for being here. I have a couple of questions, but before I start, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton and I had a wonderful opportunity to ride with Chief Crow on Friday night until about breakfast time on Saturday morning. But that being said, there was a lot of action Friday night, but it was so important and meaningful to both of us to talk to our officers on the street face to face and see how much they care about their job. And we really have some devoted men and women that truly care about doing great police work. And so I can't tell all of you, all of our men and women in blue, how much we appreciate you, but it was really good to go out and see, one, to watch them do their jobs, but also to listen to them talk about their jobs and how much they care about it. Chief, I'm in the budget book. I'm not in your PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
But for clothing, and from our adopted budget of almost right at $1 million, a dollar short, to our forecast of spending almost $1 million more, and I'm not opposed to that at all. I wish that we could buy everything for their entire career of what our men and women need. But I was just wondering why it was a jump for $1 million. And these questions you can get back to me, but I'll go through the rest of them if you want to make notes. Safety equipment. I see that we adopted an $850,000 budget, forecast to spend $2.1 million. Now, again, safety equipment. If that's safety equipment for our officers, we could never spend enough. And there's a couple things that I wanted to ask you about as it pertains to that. But M&S, I was concerned that for our adopted budget of 2024 of $650,000, projected to spend $2.7 million, is that a one-time spend? And if not, then I'm concerned that our proposed for 25 goes back down to $600,000.
I'm sorry, for M&S on what line, sir?
I'm in the budget book.
Oh, you're in the budget book.
Uh-huh. And the same thing for janitorial services, and I get the inflation could have hit that, but it was going to spend about $300,000 more than we projected. And it looks like that we have trued that amount up for FY25 proposed. But for miscellaneous professional services, it more than doubled from our adopted to our forecast of what we're going to spend. Was that a one-time spend? Because if not, we've reduced that back down to $3.4 million in our FY25 proposed. And I know I'm all over the place.
That's okay. And I'm making note of these different line items.
And I don't want to hold anybody up from speaking, and you can get back to me on those later. I just want to make sure that if those are items that are needed, like the real true amount is the forecast, and then we just adopted our budget for FY24 just too low, to make sure that we get those amounts trued up for FY25 proposed, if those amounts are going to stay the same, or if that was a one-time spend and you don't project to spend it again in FY25. Yeah. But the two items that I wanted to ask you about, and I assume it would fall under safety equipment, which would be very important to me from talking to officers, is I know that our the vests that they wear are rated to a certain amount, but I know that there's and I may pronounce this wrong, is it FRAS rifle plates that are rated up to uprated up to a 223, which would be what a lot of these nefarious characters are carrying around, whether it's a handgun style AR or it's a full rifle. But if those really are rated to stop a 223, I would love, and I know they're expensive, but I would love to be able to find a way in this budget to buy those for our officers. I would also like to see if we could, and I don't know how many we have, maybe we already have quite a few, is ballistic shields. When it comes to, and I'm talking like I know anything about policing, I know nothing. But when it comes to when they are approaching a situation, not only for the body armor, but the shields, if they're approaching, which could be a really bad situation. Yes. And if we could afford or find a way to buy more of those, and I know that not necessarily every officer needs a ballistic shield, but maybe some of the tactical units, or I don't know, maybe a certain number out of each precinct.
We had discussions about those plates, and Chief Crow, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think our TAC folks already have the vest, but the question for other officers is, can they switch their vests out to accommodate a vest that can hold that particular plate? The current vest can or cannot.
Cannot.
That's. So really, it's looking at how do we not just get the plates, but
is that something that we can look at into okay?
We absolutely can.
And then one question, and I'll give it back to the chairs. The complement of uniformed officers today, we at 19 1921? 1921. Okay. And Chief, thank you. I'm sorry to pepper you with all those questions. It's just out of concern for MPD. I want MPD to have everything if they need.
We are certainly concerned too. We just recently purchased 100 rifles to add to our rifle complement because of the firepower that's out on the street, and we'll continue to evaluate not just their equipment, but also their protective gear as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Vice Chairman Canale. Councilman Spinoza, you're eager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do I look eager?
Absolutely. You look pretty eager, sir.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your service and the presentation. Councilwoman Logan mentioned that video. I saw it too. I got a ton of messages, and we get them all the time when we see those videos. And I think every law-abiding Memphian, which is the vast majority, believe it or not, scared Memphians that watch that are like waiting for the day when 20 police cars show up or a ramming vehicle shows up. You know, this is people shooting guns out of the car and you know, terrorizing the whole city. So like what, as we, you know, they got guns, there's kids in the videos. I mean, it's almost like a gateway incident that leads to every single thing that's put us here. It's the tag issue. It's everything. So like I saw that video, and y'all were riding that night. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton and Councilman Canale were. We're talking about the budget. I know this council's focused on public safety. Allocating money is one thing, but what is stopping us today? Like is there anything stopping us today from doing the things that we can do to curb that activity? Is it a money problem, or is it a will problem, or do you need us to like pass? You're the policing experts, and I respect and love our Memphis Police Department, but do you need me to pass something to give you permission to aggressively go after the criminal element?
Thank you. It's sort of a combination of things that we need to do. We are looking at what reallocating manpower looks like in the police department. You know, people who are working in positions who could potentially have a little bit more stake in the game in a different way. We are also looking at how do we develop processes to monitor these particular activities from a surveillance standpoint, and I'm just going to put it out there. So we're looking at vehicles and other mechanisms that can help us identify the people. You know, sometimes we can't identify the cars, but if we can identify the people and hold the people accountable, then especially with holding vehicles and the things that we've talked about. And of course, our ordinance proposal is still in the legal approval process. But we believe that from various angles, whether it's reallocating manpower, utilizing surveillance and cameras, and also laws that are stringent enough to discourage that type of behavior, taking vehicles and things of that nature based on a city ordinance that might be in place at the time. So it's in the legal department right now, and we're hoping to get some answers as far as whether or not we can push that forward.
Okay.
I don't think it's anything that we need to put a dollar to right now, because we have equipment. We do need more staffing, but we can utilize some of the staffing that are in other areas. Some of the people that work overtime anyway, we can work towards details that actually can be assigned. We are monitoring the various postings of when there is a antique car show or whatever that kind of communication is, because sometimes those events bring about other people to those events that actually clog up our traffic. So we're having to pay attention to these different events, whether they're permitted or not, And really cracking down on individuals who have events without permits. What are the ramifications for them?
Thank you. I have like 20 other questions. I'll save them. We've got like 60 more days to go through this, but thank you.
Thank you.
I'm ready to make like 10
And
amendments.
in
but I'll-
another environment, I could probably be a little bit more specific.
Thank you. I think we're all ready to see that happen.
We are too.
When I say we, I mean like the entire city and this entire council. Please speak up if you don't agree. But just ready to see these things come to an end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Absolutely, sir. Councilwoman Cooper said.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to put myself out on a limb, and I can bag whatever I say. Doesn't matter who's sitting in your seat right now, interim, it'll be the same issues and problems that we're going on. So you're doing a magnificent job, you and your entire team. Friday night, Saturday morning was, as my colleague said, I'm still trying to recuperate from it. We work 911 center. I work calls for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Crow, thank you. He was magnificent. Chandler, thank you for showing up and being there as well. Thank you for picking me up. My husband felt more safer for me to be out because he was like, oh, hell no, you ain't going nowhere. And listening to the officers in the streets, Friday night, Saturday morning was on and popping here in Memphis. Their dedication, their hard work, they put their lives in danger every day. To see them out there looking for the casing of shells, I got to do that and saw them waiting for vehicles because we don't have enough fleet out there for our men and women to get back on the street to do their jobs and their work efficiently and effectively. I'm going to say what my colleague to my right just said. Whatever it is that we can do here in this council to help, because I want to say for Memphis, and what I experienced from 5:30 to 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning that I finally got dropped off at home. No, we didn't eat. We didn't have any time to eat anything. They don't eat. So we was in the trenches. We felt their pain. We didn't eat. We didn't stop. We had a drink of water, and that was it. But to actually see, it put a different perspective on the work that you all are doing.
And this was a relatively light weekend.
Really?
Yes.
I want to talk about your air.
Yes.
We had a helicopter. We know that we need
Absolutely.
high qualified pilots, and we need the equipment to do our job. They so sharp in the streets that they know where to lead us to and vamp out and do what they need to do. MLK, I think we talked about that park. Ridiculous.
Meetups.
It has to be something that they're telling people around the state of the country. You can go to Memphis and you can get away with anything you want to get away with. It has to be. And so we together are going to have to give you all what you need and fund it, double it, whatever it is, to get our city safe again and to do what needs to be done. And so I am in alignment with my colleagues on whatever it is that we need to do to get this safer, and to make sure our men and women go home to their families. I yield the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Logan? I think
Just had a
I
quick,
almost skipped it.
just had a quick
going.
question. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to know about have we started back having the reserve officer reserve officer training?
For our reserve officers that come into work, yes.
Okay.
Yes. They have annual training and then refresher training in different areas that the regular officers have training in.
Okay. What about the retired one?
Yes.
Same. Okay. All right. Thank you. You're back. How often do we have those classes?
Annually.
You said once a year?
Well, I think you may be talking about something different now. We're at the complement of reserve officers. So we haven't started hiring reserve officers. The reserve officers that we have complete the same in-service training that our full-time officers complete.
That's what I was asking. When do we open back up to hire reserve officers?
More reserve officers?
Yes. I know some that want to be reserve officers, but they said we don't have a class, or we haven't had a class, or something like that.
To look into that.
Right. So we have so many retired officers that want to be reserve officers. They're already post-certified. So it's really just a matter of switching their badge from a full-time officer badge to a reserve officer badge. And that seems to be keeping us at the complement level.
So if you had someone that used to be in the military and they want to be a reserve officer, what do they do?
They form an MPD? Are they form an MPD?
No, they just were in the military.
So they're not MPD reserve officers. These are individuals that just want to be able to be
A reserve officer.
I see. I don't think
We don't have anything for that.
But we have, we're looking at a wounded warrior program and utilizing individuals with military experience in our real-time crime center to help support in that regard. So,
Now, they're not wounded. They're
Well,
very physically fit. They're young, young
Right.
people who finished out their term, and I just want to know where to send them if they're interested in being a reserve officer.
So, we'll talk, because there may be some opportunities for us to be able to employ that person on a part-time basis to help us out in the real-time crime center and other places in the department.
We need people in the street.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Here's all. Councilwoman Swearingen Washington.
Thank you, Chair. Do we still have our highway patrol support? And if we do, what are they doing?
Yes, we do, and it can be sort of sporadic. Sometimes you see numbers of them, depending on what their demands are in Nashville. Sometimes if Nashville has events going on, like during General Assembly, sometimes they'll pull our people. But for the most part, we have seen more activity on the interstates. What we're trying to do is get a regular schedule of when to expect them out.
What about the sheriff department?
And the sheriff's department is basically on an as-needed basis. We call
We need
it
them.
ask. I know.
So they as needed indefinitely.
Well, a great example is this coming weekend with 2 barbecue contests. Sheriff's Department's devoting a tremendous amount of manpower because of the 2 separate barbecue cooking contests. And that way we have support and we don't have to use all MPD. So that.
Yeah. Special events.
All right, council members.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Do we get any support from our neighboring counties like Bartlett and Germantown?
We do have a good relationship with various details with Bartlett. Very active. I'm not sure about the other. I can't speak to.
So Bartlett is the primary because
Right.
they touch the border. The Bartlett Police Department is a huge partner of ours, especially with the Appling Farms Station officers, because the border, Highway 64 right there, the suspects just go back and forth. Bartlett officers work every day with our Appling Farm Station officers.
When we went to Washington, we saw even officers on top of the buildings downtown. Like the Beale Street area, if we could have somebody maybe on Front Street, we know it's getting warm. We know there are a lot of activities downtown. Would it be possible to do something like that?
TAC officers to be monitoring from
Yes.
a higher elevated area. That's part of the discussion about us talking about, reallocating some of our manpower to help us instead of just doing special responses to different types of things, have them more engaged in some of the regular patrol work that we need to give our patrol officers a little bit more relief to.
To be able to proactively monitor
Yes.
a broader distance.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, y'all. I know we have a couple more questions. I may be more strict than Councilman Carlisle. Budget-related questions. After this, just preparing you for what's going to happen in fire. Okay. All right, any other council members in the queue? I know Councilwoman Walker's in the queue.
This all has to do with the budget.
Yes, it does.
Come on, Councilwoman Walker. Come on, Councilwoman Walker. Come on, Councilwoman Walker. Walker's in the queue. Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So back to the comments about the support from the Sheriff's Department. Two of the city's signature Christmas parades are in my district, the Whitehaven Christmas Parade and the Hickory Hill Christmas Parade. And last year, the Hickory Hill Christmas Parade had to cancel and reschedule. It was the same day as the St. Jude event, and they were told that there was no police coverage available for the parade. So it's just an instance where we can pull from the Sheriff's Department, and also I support anything that's gonna get us more officers on the street. Certainly, a Christmas parade isn't as serious as crime, but nevertheless, public safety is deserved by everyone, and all events deserve public safety coverage.
Absolutely. So I don't know if the scheduling is St. Jude Parade. We normally get the date for that St. Jude Parade months and months in advance and start planning with St. Jude. But one of the lists as a supplement, we put together a list of all the various events that we staff, which requires overtime funding. Some of the major ones, it's at least 25 major ones, but 125 even smaller events like the Whitehaven Christmas Parade and other events that we staff on a regular basis. It does require asking other entities to help support us. And we always ask. Sometimes we get a yes, sometimes we don't have staffing, and it depends on if there are conflicting other events going on at the same time. We get that Veterans Day parade. There was something, some other parade that was going on the same day, and it sort of pulled our manpower. But all of those events affect our budget significantly. So, but to your point, we'll be glad to make sure that that event is covered, even if it's just MPD. We just need to get the date well in advance so that we don't have conflicts.
I will follow up with the producers and make sure that takes place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please don't do it the first Saturday of December.
I won't, I promise.
That St. Jude Marathon is our single largest, most manpower intensive event. And it's the first Saturday of December every year.
Okay, I'll let them know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield the floor.
Thank you. Councilwoman White, you good? I will unmute your mic if you're not good, but I will take you at your word. All right. You sure? Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me unmute your mic. All right. It automatically mutes in 1 minute.
We don't have to answer this today. I just was wondering when we were talking about the Friday night issues, and maybe this is my little imaginative mind, but I was like, does some apparatus exist where you can like shoot a moving car with some kind of magnet and it follows the car until like you all get to it? And is that a thing?
It is, but there's a long story. I've done a lot of evaluating of that, and I won't call the name of that particular device, but it has some problems and some flaws to it. But we've been looking, we've tested it. It just depends on what the bumper's made out of. If it's a plastic bumper, it's not gonna work. If it doesn't hit the car at the right place, it's not gonna work, and sometimes they fall off. And believe me, we wanna get whatever we can. But some of it is routine patrol and just stopping vehicles that have counterfeit tags and some of these other, problems that we see will help us, yes. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, all hearts and minds are good. Thank you all so much. What? No, what? Okay. Brevity. All right, because these 2 minutes. We're gonna start putting 2-minute time limits.
All right. I just want to ask a quick question. And again, I'm the type of person that go out on the limb. I would love for our county mayor and our city mayor to come together and devise a plan where we can utilize more of our sheriff department.
Sheriff Bonner is an independent elected official. The county mayor cannot direct him to do anything with his sheriff's department. So it's a question for the sheriff.
Okay.
And the mayor, Young, and Chief Davis.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know.
So, all right. Thank y'all for being here. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Chief, come on. Oakley, please.
Ready when you're ready. Do not call and roll. Absolutely not.
Are you going to You're not.
Hey, Gina Sweat, I'm your fire chief, 2670 Avery, and I'm here today to, we'll briefly go over the fire division CIP budget, and then we'll roll right into the operating budget.
All right, you got it.
All right, so the slide that's up now, I believe everybody does have the copies of our budget books. Those were handed. Y'all have those? Just making sure. Okay, good. This is the overall 5-year plan as it sits right now. As you know, sometimes things change, things happen, but this is what we see as priorities for right now. That's just kind of an overall view of it. The next slide, we'll kind of get a little deeper into the specific projects that we want to work on this next year. All right, so at the top of the slide is our EMA sirens. Those are the weather sirens. We manage, our Office of Emergency Management manages 109 of those. $150,000 helps us to do major repairs or replacements throughout the year. We try to plan on which ones we're going to replace, but sometimes our Memphis drivers help us make that plan for us because they hit the poles and damage them. So this is the yearly budget for that we usually try to work with. Drill tower improvements, there's no money this year for that. This is a long-term overall project that we look to eventually have a design plan for a wellness fitness center for the fire division and possibly other city employees to use. That is the old training tower that's behind our new headquarters. So looking out in the out years, we had hoped to maybe start that project after we get some of the other priorities accomplished. The third line, this is very important. I heard Councilman Canale, you're talking about safety equipment, personal protective equipment. This is our turnout ensembles. This is the ensembles they wear to go inside burning buildings. It also is our SCBA, which is the breathing devices that allow them to go into hazardous environments. And this is a yearly CIP budget line, and this is to purchase new ones. They have to be fitted for the person that's going to be wearing them to make sure that they have adequate coverage. So that is to purchase for new employees and replacements as needed. The next line is our fire station improvement cover line. This year we're asking for $4 million in that line. That is to do like I was just talking with Councilwoman Swearingen Washington about doing major remodels of fire stations or kind of things to improve the living conditions of the fire stations. What we'll do, we partner with General Services to work on the fire stations. We have 56 stations and 12 support facilities, buildings that we work on. General Services will work on, a lot of times they'll work on the roofing, the systems, the HVAC units and all those things, and then we'll come in, once they do roof repairs and stuff, we'll come in and fix up the interior, make the living conditions better. And just to remind you, I know you know this, but our firefighters live at these fire stations 24/7. They go to work for 24-hour shifts. So this is their home away from home. They work 10 days a month, 24 hours. So they spend a third of their life in the fire station when they get back to the fire station from their call volume that they make. So we want it to be the same things that you want in your home comfort. You want nice bathrooms, bedrooms, kitchen facilities, and so we try to do that work for them when we can. This line we anticipate probably doing one major renovation of a station and then coming back with some gender modifications in locker rooms and the bathroom facilities for females, which is, there's been a lot of efforts made in my 32 years, but we're not quite there yet where it is a place that is as comfortable for the women to work as it is for the men. So we're looking at continuing to that work and to improve on that. You'll look down, there's another line that says gender separation. So like I said, they do sleep at the fire stations. So you'll have up to 10 to 12 people sleeping in a fire station. Me and the two ladies behind me, and I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce. This is the command staff, and Teresa is my fire finance budget manager, and she's the one that really keeps me straight. But anyway, when we came on 30-plus years ago, we slept in an open dorm-like bed hall unit. From here to just say if me and Antonio were working in the same station, our beds would be about this close to each other. So it made for a lot of uncomfortable times over the years. We've done some temporary measures to put up some dividers to give at least some semblance of privacy, but there's still more work to do there. We're asking for $300,000 next year and over the next 5 years, and we feel like we can make some more permanent type dividers in the station so that we can have a more comfortable environment for people to work. And as you heard, the police have been working on a remodel for their training center. That is the first place that our new recruits come, how they learn about the pride of being a Memphis firefighter and where they get their initial training. We have not done any major remodels or renovations at our training center since it was built in about 21 years ago. So this year we're asking for $625,000. That's to do the A&E, the design, and then we'll be coming back next year to asking for the money to actually start the remodel. Moving down to Fire Station 28, that's the station at on Chelsea at Watkins. There's another fire station on Chelsea that's a little closer to Hollywood. Both of those stations are aged, in need of a lot of repairs. Fire Station 19 is in an area where they have encountered many unreasonably dangerous situations at that station. The station has been hit by bullet fire numerous times. We've had to go in and do some work there. It is not uncommon at all for people to drop off shooting, stabbing victims at the front doorstep. We've had bullets come through the glass windows, hit the apparatus while the firefighters were inside. So we feel like we could do Fire Station 28 and 19 similar to what we did with Fire Station 6 and 1. We could take them, we could find a location somewhat central to that, maybe and build a station with a little bit more secure options for the firefighters to be a safer environment. And we would also take 2 aging buildings that are in need of a lot of work and build a new station similar to the one that's on Fire Station 1, which is down the street on Chelsea. So that next year we would like, that's $1,250,000. That would be to hopefully to do land acquisition. And when we can find an appropriate area, we're looking at some lots over there now. And then to do the design work for the new station, then we would come back the next years and start asking for construction money. During my familiarization with council, I talked a lot about our grant work. I'm proud to say that we got a grant to fund the design and the business case study of replacing the fire station that's on President's Island that responds to the businesses over there. And that station would also we would also build up and increase our ability to respond to accidents or incidents on the river. We are not as adequately prepared or resourced to respond to a major event on the river like we should be, especially when you're talking about bringing these river boats into town and doing those things. A lot of you also may have seen what happened in Baltimore recently when a boat hit the bridge. We have 2 bridges here that could be hit. So this year we're just asking for the match for the grant we already got that's going to do the design work, and it's going to do the feasibility to prepare a case. And then we foresee that facility would probably cost around $20 million. And this would also prepare the work to put in for a grant, the rest of the grant, to actually fund the project in the out years. So this year is just for the match to do the study and to do the work. And then the other projects, there's no funding this year, but there's another, and you know what, I got those backwards. I've got 2 grants. Fire Station 32, that is the grant for the feasibility study. The $338,000, that is for our fire apparatus maintenance shop, which is a match grant that we should be receiving this year for two phases. It's a flood mitigation to mitigate the Gayoso Bayou that runs underneath that building as we speak and is not in good shape and needs to be repaired. We also had bought that lot on the corner where the old Salvation Army used to be, as it's in its current state, it's not buildable until that Gayoso is repaired and rerouted. So this first half of that grant would do that. The other part would do a seismic retrofit on the building. And then once the apparatus maintenance moves to the Coca-Cola plant, then we would move all of our logistical services divisions into one location. Currently, they're spread out in several locations around town. It's not efficient, so they're in at least 4 different locations now. We would move all those into a logistics hub, and then that way there'd be a one-stop shop for anything, any type of supplies, materials, or things like that we needed. So that match it's a $5 million grant in total. Our part of that match is $338,000. So I think that's a pretty good bargain if we can get that. Then once we did the grant work in the out years, we would come back and then do the interior improvements to make it functional for all of the facilities that we wanted to bring into there. And that's all my CIP requests for this year. It's a total of just under $8 million. And do you want to ask questions now, or you want to move on to the operating?
We can go ahead and hit a couple budget-related questions. All right, Councilman Canale, then Councilwoman Green, and then we're going to keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I'm going to pass out. Here, we pass these down.
Take one and pass it down. Guess I take 2.
And I got to say before I get started that I have an equal amount of love for our men and women in red as I do for our men and women in blue. We appreciate you all very much for what you do. It was interesting as well to talk to some of our firefighters and paramedics that were on the scenes of several incidences that occurred Friday night. So I want you all to know how much we appreciate you as well. And we want to provide you everything that you need to do your job in a safe and effective manner. That's why I wanted to talk about the necessity that we've got. And I'm not saying that we can solve this all in 1 year. That would be impossible. But it shows you the age of our fleet and the necessity for having a regular, no, not maintenance, but a regular replacement schedule so that the chief knows when she's going to have new fire trucks come online and when some of those will be moved to reserve. So one of the trucks that we talked to the firefighters that were on Friday night, it was a new truck. It was a great, shiny, brand new fire truck. However, the one that backs it up is 25 years old. So, colleagues, we don't ever want to get to the point where our fire trucks, and because of the way that Memphians drive, Chief could tell you how many of our fire trucks, I'm sure ambulances as well, and other fire apparatus gets hit on a regular basis. We need effective fire engines, ambulances for our top-rated department to be able to do the job effectively. If they can't get to the scene, they can't do the job. So I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. Chief can expound upon it if she would like, the necessity for a regular transfer in and transfer out of certain, especially fire trucks.
Yes, sir, and thank you, Councilman Canale, for bringing that up. I also would say our partners, General Services, we work with them. They are the actual ones that do the procurement for our apparatus, so I'm sure they will be presenting during their process the procurement request for this year. So I'll just hit on a little bit. You are right. We have NFPA standards that they recommend the replacement cycle for fire apparatus. Because we do have a very robust maintenance system, we have been able to stretch the limits of that by at least 5 to 10 years in a lot of cases. The Memphis drivers don't help us with that. So sometimes the cost of some of the older equipment, you can't get parts to replace a 25-year-old bumper. They don't make it anymore, so we either have to have something custom made or something different. But that is something that we definitely do need. I think it would be beneficial to be able to plan to a budget that we know is going to be in place, especially, COVID, the gift that keeps giving. A fire truck delivery time is, what are we up to, about 3 years now? No, yeah, the custom build, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years of build time. Now, we are looking at some options there, but what would help is knowing and being able to plan that out so that you could start planning out the budget cycle, because other big cities have figured out, the more that you put on order, the better you get to the top of the list. If somebody's gonna order 20 engines and we're gonna order 2, then they're gonna put us at the bottom of the list. That's how businesses make money.
I have a quick question, and then I'm gonna go to Councilwoman Green. How many do we need? Just shoot it to me straight.
It's a trick question?
I just want to know how many, ideal world, how many would we need?
So if I could kind of interject, if you all recall, in the fall, I presented a 5-year schedule in the event that we wanted to replace and put our fleet in solid waste, police, and fire services on a 5-year life cycle or a scheduled life cycle that's appropriate.
Is there best practices? 5-year life cycle?
Yes.
Or is it something we're trying to do?
As far as vehicles, yes. As far as apparatus, we can maybe stretch it a little bit longer. And so we modified that, and I'll send that out to you all again. That actually provides us maybe over $100 million. So with respect to that, I think we can kind of narrow down. What I've done since being the chief operating officer is I'm commissioning an inventory, true inventory of our fleet, so that we can find our fleet, identify our fleet, have one standard inventory, and then, of course, then start scheduling out our replacement cycle. Because you are correct. We do need to start planning and scheduling. And then to Chief Sweat's point, ordering 2 does very little with respect to our neighboring municipalities that order 20. And I'm not talking about here within Shelby County. I'm just talking about statewide. And, so again, we need to order more. We need to replace more often. And then we need to explore other opportunities with respect to procurement as well, in which Chief Sweat and her team actually has presented to us, and we'll move forward as this administration continues.
Thank you. Chief Adams. I said Green. If it's not a budgetary question, I think I might accidentally mute the mic. Go ahead.
Give me the mic at the beginning. So in your fire station improvement cover line, and this may be for you or the administration, I'm not really sure, but I know we're counting every penny this year, and we have $4 million this year, $4 million in 26, and then $3 million and $3 million in 27 and 28 respectively. I'm wondering, when we know a debt cliff is coming, why, if there is a particular need that for $4 million this year, in particular, or if that could be pushed down the line and this year could be one of the 3 million years. I'm a mom, I know about budgeting. So I'm just, as we're looking forward, we know that there are revenues that will be coming in a couple of years. So it seems to make more sense to me in a couple of years to have the higher cover lines than in these years.
And I understand your question. What I will say is we have not received adequate funding to repair and renovate fire stations at the pace that we should be. It's just, it's a matter of unlimited needs and, finite resources. Our average fire station is 49 years old. 49 years old.
It's older than me.
Yeah. And then so just think about it. If you either renovated or replaced one every 2 years, it would still take over 100 years to actually hit each station. So, and we have some deferred maintenance, and I know I've talked to several of you about visiting your fire stations, and anytime you want to do that, you can go by. You don't have to have an invitation. It is a safe place. It should be a safe place. And for you to go, and I'd be happy to let you go see the living conditions of some of these fire stations, those of you that haven't been in them, because some of them they're pretty rough, I'll have to be honest.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I asked, actually, the reason it stood out to me is because it looked like every other part of your CIP budget, you budgeted in the way I was suggesting, which is to be more conservative in the next year or two, and then expand more in your projects in the following years. So I appreciate that. I'm throwing it out there as an idea and a suggestion as we start looking at where we can save pennies.
Thank you, Councilwoman Green. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Well, I withdraw my question because she answered it. I want to know how old the oldest one was, and you said 49 years.
That's the average.
That's the average, you said.
That is the average. So over half of our stations were built before 1970.
Okay, and to comment on what Chief Adams said, I remember sitting right there, and he had that 5-year plan. I was not yet council, and he brought that to that administration on the fleet and on the aging and the maintenance and what it would look like. And I remember you. I still have that that presentation that you presented, and I thought it was a great plan, and I hope that we would move forward on it because you need it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
We appreciate you, as always. Is there any? Okay, all right, keep going. Is that it? All right, that's it from CIP. Did you all finish your CIP, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, keep on operating.
I didn't want you to mute my mic. So
Okay. Their mic's already muted.
Uh-oh. All right. Okay, so we'll get into our operating budget presentation and let you get to the questions. I know that's what y'all are also excited about. So the fire division, we have in our service center, in our division, we have 9 legal levels. In those legal levels, we have 18 different service centers. So that is everything, as you see on the slide here. Administration, apparatus maintenance, which is really our logistics and logistics combined, training, communication, fire prevention, firefighting, EMS, and then our airport division, which I'll go into a little bit later how that works. So in this budget, we are providing an all hazards response to enhance public safety through the emergency responses that you know that we make, through emergency management, and through also prevention initiatives. So when I say all hazards, that most people think fire, EMS, you think the red trucks. We also do fire prevention, our inspection bureau, investigation bureau. No new building gets built in the city of Memphis without one of our inspectors working with them through the fire code to make sure that it meets the new international fire code. No major renovation of any building in Memphis gets done without going through our fire inspection office. It's a very busy office. It's often, that's the one that I get the calls about because people don't like being told no. So that's the very busy station. Our fire prevention also works with public education, works with the schools. So that's also a very important initiative when we start talking about all hazards response. The other strategic priorities are to maintain our public protection classification of an ISO 1. Thank you, Councilman Canale. I think you said we have one of the best fire departments in the country. Well, we've proven that because being an ISO 1 is an achievement that less than 0.01% of the fire departments in the country have reached. So that is, that was not easy. It was not through a lot of hard work, and it was not just the fire department hard work, but the work that some of you and some of your predecessors did to make sure that we were adequately resourced. Your ISO looks at your staffing, it looks at your response capabilities, it looks at your apparatus condition, it looks at your communication center, it looks at your water distribution center, looks at our fire prevention effort. It takes all of those things, and we get scored against a standard. And we rated about as high as you can get. So I'm really proud of that. But like I said, it takes a lot of collaboration and a lot of work to make that happen. And then it takes the boots on the ground to believe in it and to actually get out there and do the work. The other thing is I think we've talked a lot about innovation. A lot of times when I come before you, I'm talking about being innovative, using technology in a better way than we have in the past. And we've made huge strides in that the last 8 years since I've been in this position. And we use data not to make decisions, but to look at ways to make better decisions, to guide us in our operational efficiencies. What can we do better? What can we do differently? We use the data and the technology to look at training opportunities. What do we need to train on? Where are our opportunities for quality improvement initiatives? And this is very important in our EMS division. Doctors, you know, in the medical services, you always are looking for ways to measure what you're doing, make sure you're doing it efficient. And that really becomes important when you start looking at Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements, that they want you to be able to show your efficiencies and how you're improving on your quality. And so we have a team that's devoted to that, and they do make a difference and gives us ways that we know where we can get better. Even though we're really good, we want to still continue to be better. This budget gives us the ability to recruit, train, and retain quality personnel through a multi-dimensional approach. Now, those of you that have been around for a while, my first 30 years on the city of Memphis, like, we had 2 classes a year. We probably the last 7, 8 years, recruiting has changed. It used to be an open, you'd have 3,000 people show up at the Mid-South Coliseum to get a ticket to go apply for a job. Those days are over. Same with like our brothers and sisters in blue. We're having to get out there and convince people that being a public servant is a worthwhile career. It's not as easy as it used to be when there's so many other things that pay more and sometimes give them, more notoriety than being a firefighter or police officer or EMT. So we're looking at a lot of different ways. You heard me talk about the right response. We also want to have the right person on the scene with the right training at the right time. We also want to make sure that we're using all of our personnel as efficiently as possible and using their specialized skill sets in the best, most efficient way. So that, you heard me talk about fire prevention and our public safety education. That's a collaboration with the school systems, our Fire Museum of Memphis, which is a nonprofit that we help support with staffing and personnel. And we work with them together. Also, that they work together with our recruitment team. So once you're in the schools, not only you teach them to be safer, but you start reaching them younger and introducing them just to the thought of being a firefighter and EMT at a younger age, and then giving them the tools as they get a little older to know what they need to do to be successful. And then you heard me talk about the fire station. They are truly anchors in our community because your predecessors, mine, really placed fire stations in really good locations throughout the city. So we have really good fire coverage and they're close. And the citizens of Memphis know when you need help, they run to the fire station. When the kids after school, when they want something to drink or they need help with their homework, they'll come to the fire station and they'll sit down, and the guys and girls will often sit down with them, talk to them about making good grades, help them with their mentoring. But I truly say the fire stations everyone knows that's a safe place. So that's where a lot of people know to go for help. So we want to make sure that we continue to be able to provide that service. Okay, so I'm going to move right into the page 5. Page 5 is our bridge from 24 adopted budget to our FY25 request. So we'll go ahead and just make note of it here. We know that we had to make a major adjustment to our 24 adopted budget. So that is going to show up under the difference between the adopted budget and a couple of other council approved resolutions that changed our funding budget. Our original adopted budget was $201,353,923. Our funding budget then became $215,847,720. And our total request for FY25 is $239,382,984. Now, if you move, I guess I'm going a little bit in reverse here, but if you go up to the top, looking at the total personnel services, the adopted was a little over $175 million. In FY24, the funding budget was $186,718,767. And then our request for FY25 is $210,064,067. So you see there, that is mostly in the personnel line. And then there's, excuse me, and that shows the differences. That's about a 19% difference if you compare the request to the adopted budget. Same thing in materials and supplies. There was some adjustments there. Our budget request, our adopted budget was $25,848,671 for FY24. We have a encumbrance roll forward plus the council budget revisions gave us a funding budget of $28,917,727. And then next year we're asking for $29,221,917. A slight change, not much in the capital outlay, going from 86,000 to 97. And then the transfer out, there's no request for 25 there. So if you look at the request to adopted, that shows a $38 million difference. But if you actually compare it to the funding budget after the adjustment, it's $25,535,264. So what looks like 18.9% here in all actuality is really 10.6% increase is the difference. I just wanted to point that out because we did have to have a major adjustment to our budget this year. Moving on to the next slide, and it starts breaking it down by our legal levels. And you see at the bottom, this just shows how our personnel are distributed, how those costs are distributed with the M&S and the personnel cost. The administration, right now we have the raises are banked in that service center right now until they actually are approved through the budget, and then they'll be moved to the appropriate service center. And we also have a SAFER grant that we received in February, and we actually have the expenses for that in that service center now until the budget gets approved, and then those personnel come on board. You'll see some decreases with the shop, and that was apparatus maintenance. That was a decrease in the city shop and fuel charges. And then you see in administration also, I will be asking for an ISL, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But that is to continue to look at the right response and to put people in place who can do some of the work, and then the specialized, the dual role firefighter paramedics, be able to put them on the streets where we can fully take advantage of their training and their skill sets. Logistical services, you see an increase, and that's going to be mostly due to household supplies. You talk about 57 fire stations and 12 support facilities. It takes a lot of cleaning supplies. Post-COVID, all of those expenses have gone up considerably, and there's a lot more effort. People really focus more on sanitizing and keeping things even cleaner because post-COVID. And then our EMS medical supply cost has gone up. We're showing a 16.7% increase in that budget line. And a lot of that is due to medical supplies. So we've been able to, when Chief Person presented, we talked about ARPA, the CARES money, the ELC grants. All of those help fund some of these expenses in medical supplies. But as those run out, then we're going to have the need to fund those adequately to provide the services. So that kind of shows what legal levels that the budget breaks down in. On page 7, we'll get into some of the major drivers. What changed in the budget? Where did we get? You look at some of where we reduced the budget. We had too much budget in bonus days. The city did away with the bonus day program a few years ago. We still have firefighters that have some bonus days on the books, but not to the level that they were selling them before. So we were able to reduce that line. Different things, payroll and benefits, slight decrease there. It's the same story that Chief Person told. I'm sure every division, some of the changes, looking at the pension going up just a little bit, the EDC going up. Final pay, we've had the last 3 years, record number of firefighters leaving the job.
Speaking, go ahead, because I'm about to start asking questions.
That was one of my questions, but since you touched on it, the final pay, is that for retirees or resignations as well?
Both.
So anybody, whether you've served for 5 years or 25 years, whatever you've built up, you get to know.
Yeah, well, if you leave without once you retire, yes, you get to sell some sick leave and your vacation days. If you leave and you are not retirement age, you only get your accrued vacation leave.
But is that booked right here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's when they leave it.
What's our current authorized complement? What do we have now?
1829.
Okay, so, and how many, if we were at full complement, what would we be? In terms of, is there a certain number of firefighters that we need?
If we're full would be, so about 150 of the 1829 are civilian positions. The rest of them are firefighting positions. Now, the 1829 is an increase of 56 positions that will be funded based on the SAFER grant that we received for next year to fund 56 positions. Our complement was 1773. The grant was to fund an additional 56 positions over your authorized complement. So that is also, it's budgeted in your salaries, but it's also in your revenues as a recovery.
Has there been I'm sure there has there been a study to show how many we need, how many fire personnel we need?
So we look at it. I mean, there are different studies. There's been several throughout the years done through the city of Memphis with differing opinions. What we do have to look at is we use a 5 to 1, a 5 to 4 for every 4 firefighters you need on a piece of equipment. We try to have 5 or 6 people signed to that apparatus because they get a certain number of sick leave, they get vacation leave, holidays. Some get holidays.
I'm gonna tell you where I'm going, so you can already know.
Okay.
I see 0, 0, 0. Then I see a 500,000 in terms of what is this 500,000 for? 500,000 for advertising and publication. So I see a 0 in FY23 for the adopted budget. FY24 I see a 0. The forecast is 0, and then FY25 I see 500,000.
Yes, sir. And that's
a lot of money.
That's recruitment.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out where we need to be.
Yeah, that's recruitment money that's been paid through ARPA. That and the
so this
relocation.
is ARPA funding too?
It was ARPA funded. It was. So now that the ARPA funds are expended,
so that's why I said 0, 0, 0.
It was actually
we
paid.
ARPA.
We used ARPA for that. So we actually spent funds on that. It just wasn't in our operating budget.
Yeah, Council Chairman, and if I can just speak to that.
Because I had my red pen out.
Oh, no, well, that was part of when we look back to what we talked about last week, there were $13.5 million in ARPA funds that were devoted to police and fire recruitment, advertising, promotion. It's all rolled up. It was administered out of HR, but that's why, one of the reasons why this budget hit so hard.
So how much did we spend last year? Like, I would like to know how much we spent in the previous years so I can determine whether 500,000 is where we should be spending. I don't want to see some... I just want to know the truth. I know y'all give it to me straight now.
No.
Okay.
And that's a good question. I can't, on the fly, uncommingle it, but I'd say that it was likely more than 500,000 just because of the monies that we went through the 13.5 million and actually started to use other funds to support that.
In order for this council to make a prudent decision, because we're cutting,
I understand,
because we're still bloated. It'd be advisable for us to know how much money we were spending in these fiscal years, so we can determine whether 500,000 is sufficient. It may not be enough, or it may be too much. We don't know. We don't know, because obviously it's zero. So, we'd love to see an email go out to the body to say, hey, in our estimation, we spent X amount of dollars for advertising and recruitment. And the reason I was asking about, where we were in terms of fire personnel, are we at the maximum number, or do we need more fire personnel? We don't know that. I don't know that either, because I haven't heard a concrete number. I think she said 1829 is where we are. Should we be at 1900? I don't know. I don't know anything.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just
understand.
I want to get more information on that.
I can get you the numbers that we spent specifically for fire within the next day or so.
I know Councilman Warren has a question similar or.
Well, it sort of relates to that. If you look back at what happened when we had our budget crisis, policeman for 3 years and we got behind.
When didn't we not have a budget crisis? I would argue last year was a budget crisis.
My question is
All right, thank you, Councilman. That's a great question. So 1829 would be our new complement when those grant positions are funded. We have been able to stay fairly close to the 1773. We haven't been carrying a lot of acreage. What we do have is what I call a churn. We would say currently we have a class that started. We lost 11 people out of this recruit class. 11 of those people were hired to fill specific positions in our complement. They stay recruit status until they make it off the probationary period of a year. Say that person, so we just lost 11 people out of this class. So that's 11 positions that we were supposed to fill that were funded. Now I have to hire somebody to replace that position again, and without ever really getting the benefit of that person. So we hire classes. Historically, we've only had 2 classes a year my whole career. The last 3 years, we've started having 3, 4, and then this year I think we're going to have 5 classes. So that is just to maintain, that is basically to maintain the churn and to keep treading water, sir.
So 500,000. So the 500,000 in, I guess, advertising and publication is funds that we use to conduct classes.
So that would be we have had a little bit more luck with our lateral hiring program than our brothers and sisters in blue. It does require some travel. It does require some advertising in different cities. We have hired people from, 38 states over the last 3 years. So we're hitting California, Illinois, Alaska. We have had people from Austin, and that's where the other money that you're looking at in the relocation fee, instead of paying the bonuses, we found it was more beneficial to pay them the relocation fee if someone's traveling all the way, moving here from California. And we've had many people travel here from California to relocate. So that's what we've been using the ARPA fund. We'll definitely get a number of what we have been using, but that would be to do some advertising in those cities prior to our recruitment team visiting so that we get the most bang for our buck while we're there and have people.
Okay. I know Councilwoman Green, Councilman Canale, and then
It's like you don't want me to talk today, Chair. I wanted to follow up on that relocation line because it's at 1.1 million. And, you know, you just said 38 states for recruitment sustainability. I guess my question is, I assume if you're moving from Alaska, you get more than if you're moving from Arkansas, but I don't know that. And I don't really know how this is spread out. You mentioned that you have had some success in California. I'm just wondering if we are going to have that marketing budget, could we market closer to home so that our relocation budget maybe is a little bit smaller? Because we don't have ARPA funds coming back in. So we are not going to continue to have, you know, $500,000 of marketing and $1 million of relocation fees. So I'm concerned about that. And I'm also concerned about the 56 new grant-based positions, because is that for 1 year? And then we're going to have to pick those up because, you know, we were just in this position a month or so ago where we had 101 firefighters that weren't going to get paid. So I don't want to be back here. I know how much that costs. That's about $10 million. So this is about half of that. That's about $5 million. I don't want to be here in 2 years with an extra $5 million expense. So that's sort of some places that are causing me a little heartburn in the budget, if you could speak to those.
Absolutely. So the relocation fee, it is a maximum of $3,500. That's the most that they can get. So obviously it costs more to move all the way from California than that.
And do we tie that to a retention? So like, do they have to stay in the force for a year or 2 years?
They have to be here 2 years.
Okay.
Yes. So that is that part. Yes, we really have marketed to all over the United States. What the team has been able to do is really tie into some hot markets someplace. We hit Illinois really hard like 3 years ago. And then right now the hot spot has been California. Ohio, we've got a lot of firefighters here from Ohio that came here 10, 12 years ago and have reestablished roots here. So we've hit states as things happen. Sometimes, like Illinois, like we watched things like they raised their state income tax, and they had an overflux of paramedics. So doing the research, the team targeted that area, and that's how we were able to have success. So it is using data to kind of see what's going on in the different areas. I have a pretty robust ear out there with my peers across the United States, and so you pay attention. The team really looks at where the next opportunities, and then we kind of like target that market while we can. We've done a lot of marketing in California, and so then you start relying on the word of mouth of the people who've come here. You want them to have a good experience so that they go tell their friends. So that's what we've been working on. Now, the SAFER grant. This was a grant that was accepted, the previous administration. It is for 3 years. It pays 100% of their salaries for 3 years. The idea was the grant was specifically given so that we could increase our advanced life support capabilities to our fire engines and fire trucks. So we would have more advanced life support capabilities on the scenes faster than just having most of it primarily on the ambulances. So the idea was, if that works and we see using data to see if it's an effective strategy for mitigating our increased call volume, that we would come back before that last grant year and ask for that in an ISL. If that was not something that the budget would support, with us losing 250 to 300 firefighters a year, we would absorb those positions back into our original complement of 1773. So that is the plan for those positions. We would, at the end of the grant, we would have to get that as a true ISL.
And the quick question, we have Chief Houston here. I want to know, because it's advertising, publication, why isn't this in Chief Houston's division? I want to hear that, because it's communication, advertising, publication. Seems like we got to figure out a way to absorb some of these costs. Because if I have my red pen decides to circle this and just move some funding over to you, I want to know, would you be able to address some of the concerns of fire?
Sure.
And maybe some of the other departments as well.
Sure, Penelope Houston.
I believe you.
This recruitment budget has been managed by this team who has the technical expertise to know how to target for this. And I think they've proven that they've done a really good job with the budget that they had. It was inflated because of ARPA, but they used it to their success. And this team really had some technical expertise there.
And Councilman, may I add, we have worked very closely with Jason.
Absolutely,
Jason
we work
Barnett.
very close with him all the time.
As a matter
We
of
work on their
fact,
plans.
my team tried to steal him. In full transparency, we've worked very closely with your predecessor and with Jason before. This is when we're buying advertising stuff. We work with them.
They pay it. We create and run, and they pay it based on.
So, trying to get Canales' attention. I'm teasing. I know I'm gonna do it with a red pen. Councilwoman Green, are you done? Because I know Councilwoman Cooper Sutton's in the queue. Councilman Canella, I heard from you. Like, I have heard from Councilwoman Cooper Sutton. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, it's 5:54, and I feel like the mics are gonna be muted soon. Go ahead, Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
I mean, how many new deputy chief positions been created in the last year or two since we're talking about cost? I would like to know, could you, offhand, do you know that, or could you get that to me?
Deputy chief positions?
Uh-huh.
There's been no new deputy chief
There's been
positions
no?
created in the last 3 years.
Okay.
The last, I'm just following up, the last command staff position that was created was when we went from having one deputy director at the time, we now call them assistant chiefs, to having two for operational efficiencies, and the police division also followed suit and created the same type of position afterwards. But as far as the deputy chiefs, we still have 5 positions, and which has been for quite some time, even before I got in this role.
Okay. Your promotional testing person, is that a contract that you all have, your promotional testing?
Yes, that is.
A contract?
It is a contract that HR administers the promotional testing processes. It's paid for out of our budget, but HR actually administers and manages that process. And we assist them as they request.
My next is how much?
It depends on which promotions we're testing for. This next year, I believe it's on down. I believe it's like $600 and something thousand this next year, and the largest part of that is this also does. They also do our entry level testing, and then the largest we'll be testing. I know for sure drivers this next year, because that's the most expensive test to administer, because it's very labor intensive to actually administer that test.
Okay. And I want to ask you about overtime control. How is that managed?
So,
and I want to just kind of actually compare it in the last 3 years.
So there's several things that affect overtime. I think when I did my initial familiarization with council, I told you that we would be talking about minimum staffing, and you would hear about that again when we came to budget. So NFPA guidelines best practice is every engine and fire truck is staffed with 4 personnel. Some departments staff with 5 to 6. We follow NFPA guideline recommendations. We also, the MOU says that we will have minimum staffing of 4 people on the engines and trucks. It takes 2 people to staff an ambulance for them to be in service. With that level of staffing, it also requires, NFPA recommends a certain amount of supervision from chief officers on the scene to manage scenes. It goes on to make recommendations for the number of people we should be able to get on the scene within 9 minutes of an alarm for particular types, starting at residential, which requires 15, to going all the way up to high rises, which is the most. So we try to meet all those guidelines, and we're pretty successful at meeting those guidelines. So with that, we have a certain number of bodies. It takes 407, we call them butts and seats. It takes 407 to just fill the emergency response positions every day. So that's 3 shifts, and it takes about 6 people to every 4 when you start looking at leave time, everybody with the, between sick leave, vacation leave, OJI leave, people that are detailed out, they have deaths in the family, with people that are off, and we average about 115, 20 people off a day. So when we don't have enough people, then we call in overtime to fill those positions. So we call those mandatory staffing positions. We use a program called Telestaff, the new electronic, the part of the UKG system, and it actually helps us control that overtime and call in the right people. They have to have the right certification, they have to be the right rank. It's a lot goes into it that we make sure that they meet those roles.
My last question is, I was out on the streets, and that was this extra vehicle, and I wanted to know, was this ARPA money being used? Is this a program that you will continue to use? I think it was Alliance, and I think they were called Navigators. Is that something will be continued, or was that just a program? Or how would this, is it in the funding, or how is it, was that ARPA money, or, you know, because that deals with our mental illness, and that's a kind of a baby of mine, dealing with the mental illness part of it. And so I want to ask, where is that standing, and is that funded? Have you funded that?
Yes, ma'am. The Healthcare Navigator program is a multi-pronged approach to trying to deal with non-emergent responses. About 80 to 85% of our call volume is EMS, and about 20 to 25% of our EMS call volume is non-emergent. That means that the way it comes in, we generally doesn't necessitate running lights and sirens, because the information we have lets us know it's not life-threatening. The Healthcare Navigator has 3 prongs. Most of them have been supported with some type of grant funding, multiple levels of grant funding, to be honest with you, that we have been able to put together to prove the concept and for sustainability. The CARES program is still in this budget. That is the one that responds to the mental health crisis with our MPD brothers and sisters and with the Alliance Mental Health. We're looking at ways to increase that capacity. Another part of the Navigator program deals with high utilizers, which sometimes move over into the mental health space as well, because that's why they're calling, when I say overutilizing, like multiple times a day or week. So we try to work with them. And then we have some the other response units we're responding to what we call alpha level calls, which is the lowest acuity call, and trying to get them to other resources. And that is part of my ISL request, is to add some peak time units to help deal with some of that call volume.
Thank you so much, Councilman Canale. Brevity. Councilwoman Green. Brevity. Oh, see? Councilman Canale and Councilman Warren. I'll mute y'all, sorry.
I guess I just wanted to piggyback on the Navigator program. I've been talking to people who are in the department, and one of the frustrations I think they have is that oftentimes the same high utilizers will be essentially calling for a ride to get to the emergency department waiting room so they can spend the night there as opposed to something else. And we don't have anything or any situation that we can do that can fix that. And I don't know, as you're going forward, think outside the box, bring us something creative that we can help you with, because I know it's creating a sense of frustration that people are saying, you know, this guy's called 5 times. He says he has chest pain. You know, what do I do? Is there a way the Navigator can say, no, you can't go today? You know, you can't use this as a taxi service. So I don't know the answer to it, Chief, but if you can come up with something we can help you with, I'd like to.
Yeah, so Doc, you've been around for a minute. You know, we don't shy away from innovation, and we are talking to other departments and looking at some other practices that other departments are utilizing, and we definitely will be bringing some ideas back to you.
Good, because it seems to me like that particular person, instead of going to ER needs to be going to a lakeside type ER, where they can evaluate them and see if they need to be committed to get the care they need. If what they're doing is calling for an ambulance for chest pain every day and taking that out of service, and someone who may need it can't get it. So that's where it becomes dangerous. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. So quick question. This is a question for President McGowan and Chief Adams and Chief Sweat. He's not here, but y'all can answer the questions and relay him this message. So MLGW is charging us, what's that number? 2.6 million. What'd you say? budgeted 1.8. We have to figure out something.
Is this for utilities? This is your utility line?
That's what it says.
Okay.
Can we call him immediately? Immediately.
I'm good with it.
Yeah. Quickly. That's a lot. You know, it's supposed to be in the business of helping people and helping the city of Memphis. 2.8 million doesn't look like much help to me. 2.6 million. That is all.
Hold on, I got one.
You another one. Could you let President McGowan know we're discussing this and he needs to come talk to us?
Yes, sir.
We're trying to help hire.
Yes, sir.
Chief, was there one major thing that made the miscellaneous professional services jump?
Yeah, and that's actually, if you want me to move on to my revenue slide, that kind of.
We didn't even get there?
Yeah, we're not even at the, yeah, so I got some good news. So please let me get my good news out is we're anticipating our revenue increasing next year by $8.5 million.
So for ambulance,
And so that is where.
did we raise the rates?
So that is where we get charged 1% to collect, so our EMS revenue is going up 6.4 million. So
Okay.
when our revenue in EMS goes up, then so does our billing go up there. So that is probably the biggest driver in that category.
Colleagues, this is one of the, talk about her attrition rate. It's really easy. They come here, they get trained by the best, and they get poached by neighboring departments. So that's our job to keep them at the top, because if not, before long, if you lose too many of those guys, men and women in the 5 to 7 years, because they aren't close enough to stay on because of retirement, then you lose that senior leadership, that training, that on-the-job training. I know that the academy does a great job training, but I don't think you can replace that on-the-job training from the older people on the job, teaching them. That's all I've got.
Sounds like Tommy Malone's been doing this pretty good job.
And we have last year our attrition rate was about 25 a month. We were losing average a little over 25 a month. We're down to 18, 19 this year. So it's better, but it's not where we need to be under 10. So we're still working on that. So some of the work we have done with the salaries has helped. I'm encouraged that it's actually starting to go back down now. So, because we had like 3 years of growth, and so it going back down this year has been.
But the county is
positive.
about to go up 6%, and
Stop it.
that's what I was saying. And I mean, I'm not on the trucks, but I'm going to guess that it's an easier job out in the county than in the city. So
yes.
Okay. Councilwoman JSW.
I noticed you all are able to get a lot of grants. And thank you.
Hold up.
I noticed that you all are able to get a lot of grants. Do you have a person designated just for that? If so, how many?
I have one that's dedicated to that job. That's what he does all the time. He's one of our firefighters. He does a tremendous job recruiting, but we're looking at bringing another person in to help him, because as you get it's the research on the front end and then the back end of it, making sure that you follow all the guidelines and everything, make sure that you don't want to, the compliance piece is really big. So we're looking at part of that ISL would be to have 2 people in that office. Obviously, that person works very closely with my finance person, and we actually have a committee that we put together. It's not a full that they get together and regularly and look at what type of grants are out there, what they're going to apply for. So we have a committee we put together, and we started that in 2017. We actually put that person in place and this team together. And prior to, I think earlier this year when I presented, we had brought in $75 million worth of grants since that inception of that team. So,
How often do they meet?
Chief Sullivan and Chris, usually about quarterly at least twice a year they'll meet, and then they'll be gathering information. It just depends on, like, this is the time of year to put in for all the federal grants. And so it's like really robust right now, like head down, let's get it done. Then you get a little bit of a lull period, but like a lot of the federal grants all fall where they're due all at the same time. So we kind of have to pull team members in as we need them and then kind of lighten up a little bit.
when it comes to our renovations, I just wonder if we could have something like, as a pilot program, Habitat for Humanity approach, where businesses donate materials or the community and help to renovate. I know as a principal, if I didn't have money or they didn't come in and fix things, I had people that would donate wax to make sure the floors look good. People would come in and do the grass, paint, however.
Yeah, I will remind you that the firefighters, they don't have housekeepers that come to the fire stations or people that cut their grass either. They do their own, they do the cleaning, the floor wax, and they do the grass maintenance, cleaning the apparatus, all of those things they do. We do get sometimes we get Lowe's and Home Depot will come in and make some donations, and some people in the neighborhoods, but it's a little bit tricky because a renovation has to be done to code, and there are certain standards that have to be met. I mean, I'm willing to try anything to get the fire stations fixed up. Trust me. So if you have some ideas, throw them at me. But there is a lot of work that could be done. You're right.
Okay.
All right. Appears that all hearts and minds are clear. Thank you all so much. Goodbye.
No, goodbye to